My sister struck me across the face before 200 guests at her wedding because I refused to give her my penthouse. Little did she know a judge was watching. At my sister's lavish wedding, my parents insisted that I give up my penthouse for their new family. Mom exclaimed, "Selfish children don't deserve success," Dad added. "Your sister's children need real homes." Sister scoffed, finally getting what I've always deserved. When I declined, she struck me harshly in front of 200 people. Everyone began laughing. I did not cry. I picked the revenge that would permanently silence them. The champagne flute trembled in my palm as I saw my sister, Sabrina, glide across the marble floor of the Ritz-Carlton's large ballroom, her custom Vera Wang gown trailing behind her like liquid silk. 200 people had arrived to see her fairy tale wedding to Derek, a brilliant investment banker she met only 8 months before. I couldn't help but notice the irony that she was marrying for money while wanting me. I'm Vivian, 32 years old, and I've worked my ass hard to be where I am now. While Sabrina was busy playing house with several lovers in her 20s, I was pulling all-nighters in law school and working 70-hour weeks at a top Manhattan firm. 5 years ago, I took the biggest risk of my life by establishing my own firm, focusing on business litigation. It paid off spectacularly. Last year, I concluded a settlement that allowed me to acquire a penthouse overlooking Central Park, which everyone now claimed belonged to them. Vivian, darling, you look absolutely radiant. My mother, Diane, approached with her typical phony smile, which she saved for when she wanted something. Her silver hair was precisely coiffed, and she wore a navy dress that likely cost more than most people's rent. "We need to have a little family chat." My stomach sank. Family conversations in the Morrison household were never good news. "Mom, it's Sabrina's wedding day. Can't whatever this is." "Wait. Actually, no." My father, Robert, appeared beside her, his expression harsh. At 58, Dad still commanded attention in his fitted tuxedo, but his eyes bore the unmistakable disappointment that had haunted me since boyhood. "We've been discussing your living situation." My living situation. I sat down with my champagne and realized I needed both hands free. "What about my living situation?" "Well, honey," Mom's voice took on that sickeningly lovely tone. "You know how Sabrina and Derek are starting their family? They're going to need more space than that tiny apartment Derek has been renting." I blinked. "They're not even pregnant yet, Mom, but they will be soon." Sabrina's voice echoed over the little circle as she joined us, her new husband's arm around her waist. At 28, she was certainly attractive with auburn hair and green eyes, but her expression was calculated and it made my skin crawl. "We're planning to start trying right away." "Congratulations," I murmured cautiously. "I'm sure you'll find a lovely place to raise your family." "We already have," Sabrina replied, her smile bright. "We want your penthouse." The words struck me like a physical blow. "Excuse me." "Now, Vivian, before you get all defensive," Dad jumped in, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he used when he thought he was being reasonable. "Think about this logically. You're a single woman. You don't need all that space. Sabrina and Derek, on the other hand, are starting a family. They need room for children, for their future. You want me to give up my home?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The home I worked for years to afford. "Not give up," Mom hastily corrected. "Trade. You could take Derek's apartment. It's perfectly adequate for one person. A 600-foot studio in Queens." I asked frankly. "You want me to trade my 3-bedroom penthouse on the Upper West Side for a studio apartment in Queens?" "Vivian, don't be so dramatic," Sabrina urged. "It's not like you even use all that space. What do you need 3 bedrooms for? You don't even have a boyfriend." The comment stung just as she had intended. Sabrina had always been the ideal child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. They hailed her bold for dropping out of college to find herself. They referred to her career and relationship changes as exploring her options. When I graduated summa cum laude from law school, They were concerned that I had worked too hard. I need those bedrooms because it's my home, I responded, my voice rising slightly. I earned it. I paid for it. And I'm not giving it up. Vivian Elizabeth Morrison. Mom's voice became harsh. That is incredibly selfish. Family comes first. Always. Family? I laughed cruelly. Have any of you ever treated me like family? When I needed help preparing for the bar test, you said I was being antisocial. When I established my own business and struggled, you accused me of being careless. When I finally succeeded, you pretended it was an accident. That's not true, Dad said. However, his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? When was the last time any of you inquired about my life, career, and happiness? But as soon as I have anything you desire, I'm back with my family. Sabrina came forward, her face red with rage. You know what your problem is, Vivian? You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that I'm getting married, that I'm going to have the family you'll never have. I'm not jealous of you, Sabrina. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed? She laughed harshly. Are you disappointed in me? I'm the one getting married, and I'll be the one to give Mom and Dad grandkids. What have you done besides make money? I've built a life, I said gently. I've worked hard for everything I have. I've never asked any of you for anything. Well, now we're asking something of you, Dad stated firmly. Your sister needs that penthouse more than you do. It's time you did something for your family instead of just yourself. Robert's right, Mom said, raising her voice. Selfish children don't deserve success. You've had everything handed to you, and now you won't even help your own sister. The accusation was so ludicrous that I nearly laughed. Handed to me? I worked 3 jobs to pay for law school. I lived on ramen noodles for 2 years while building my practice. I've never asked you for a dime. Your sister's kids need real homes. Dad said loudly across the ballroom, causing several nearby visitors to turn and stare. Not some cramped apartment. They deserve better. They're not even conceived yet. I protested, but I knew I was losing this battle. My family was always brilliant at making me feel bad about my accomplishments. Sabrina moved closer, her voice low and nasty. You know what, Vivian? I'm done pretending to care about your feelings. I've always known I was the better daughter. I'm prettier. I'm more likable. I'm the one who makes Mom and Dad proud. And now I'm finally getting what I've always deserved. The words hung in the air between us, posing a challenge around us. Wedding guests began to gather, sensing drama. Some were openly staring now, their discussions dying as they concentrated on our family argument. What do you always deserve? I said softly. And what exactly is that, Sabrina? Everything, she replied simply. The penthouse, the respect, the life you've been hoarding for yourself. I deserve it all, and I'm finally going to get it. Over my dead body. The slap came so fast that I didn't see it coming. Sabrina's fingers hit my cheek with a piercing snap that rang across the ballroom. For a brief while, the sound appeared to stop. 200 guests fell silent, their discussion breaking in mid-sentence as they turned to watch the sight unfold in front of them. Then the laughter began. It started with a few scattered giggles from Sabrina's friends who had always looked down on me for being too serious and focused on work. But it spread like wildfire among the audience. Guests who did not know me were laughing, pointing, and muttering behind their hands. Did you see that? She actually slapped her. About time someone put Vivian in her place. I always knew she was stuck up. My cheek burned, but I did not cry. I would not offer them satisfaction. Instead, I stood there, feeling the pressure of 200 pairs of eyes on me, listening to their laughing, whispered comments and judgment. Sabrina smiled triumphantly. Maybe now you'll start acting like a real sister. Mom and Dad stood behind her, not apologizing for their daughter's actions, nor protecting me. They merely watched, waiting to see if I'd ultimately given to their demands. That's when I realized something significant. This wasn't only about the penthouse. This was about them keeping me in my place, reminding me that no matter how successful I was or how hard I worked, I would always be the disappointment, the one who didn't count. But they had made one critical error. They had humiliated me in front of 200 witnesses, including some prominent figures from New York's legal and commercial circles. People who knew me, respected me, and witnessed what I was capable of. I reached into my bag and took out my phone. My hands, remarkably, still despite the wrath running through my veins. Without speaking, I began typing. "Vivian, what are you doing?" Mom inquired uneasily. I ignored her and continued to type. People around us began to laugh, less as they noticed I wasn't behaving as expected. I wasn't crying or running away in humiliation. I was doing something else totally. "Vivian, put that away," Dad said. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said quietly, kept typing. "I'm not the one who should be embarrassed." Sabrina attempted to grab my phone, but I moved aside and clicked send just as her fingertips touched the screen. "What did you do?" she hissed. I looked up at her, my parents, and the multitude of guests who were still watching us with unmistakable interest. "I chose the revenge that would silence you forever." Their confused expressions were nearly hilarious. They clearly expected me to either give in to their demands or burst out crying. They did not expect me to fight back. My phone buzzed with an answer, followed by another, and then several more in fast succession. "Vivian, what did you send?" Mom's voice became shrill, panic setting in. I gave the first genuine smile I'd felt all evening. I sent a message to my group chat. You know, the one with all my lawyer friends, the journalists I've worked with, the business contacts I've made over the years, the people who actually matter in this city. Sabrina's face turned white. What kind of message? Just a little update about tonight's events. How my family demanded I give up my penthouse to my sister and her new husband. How my mother screamed that selfish children don't deserve success. How my father said my sister's hypothetical children needed real homes more than I do. How my sister slapped me in front of 200 people because I wouldn't hand over my life's work. The ballroom had gone utterly silent. Even the string quartet had ceased performing. I also mentioned how everyone laughed when I was assaulted. I said, my voice clearly audible over the hush, how amusing they found it that a successful woman was being put in her place by her family. "Vivian, you need to delete that right now," Dad warned, his voice dangerously low. I shrugged. Delete what? The truth. Too late anyway. It's already been shared. You know how social media works, Dad. Once something's out there, it's out there forever. My phone was now continuously vibrating with messages of sympathy, fury on my behalf, and pleas for additional information. The story was spreading faster than I had expected. "You vindictive!" Sabrina screamed, her voice wavering slightly. "No, Sabrina, I'm just done being your doormat." Derek, who had been mute during the argument, eventually spoke up. "Vivian, maybe we can work something out. We didn't mean for things to go this far." I stared at him with pity. "You married into the wrong family, Derek. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." "What do you mean?" he inquired, his tone betraying genuine confusion. "I mean your new wife and in-laws just made some very powerful enemies. Do you know who Judge Margaret Chin is? She was here tonight. She saw everything. She's already texted me, expressing her disgust at your wife's behavior." Sabrina's face changed from white to green. Judge Chin was one of New York's most recognized judges, known for having no tolerance for entitled conduct, and David Rodriguez from the Times. He's been following me around all evening, trying to get an interview about my latest case. He saw the whole thing. He's asking if I want to comment on how successful women are treated by their families. "Vivian, stop," Mom urged. "You're going to ruin Sabrina's wedding." Sabrina ruined her own wedding when she decided to assault me in front of 200 people. "It was just a slap," Sabrina insisted. "You're being dramatic." "It was an assault, Sabrina, and it was witnessed by 200 people, including several lawyers, a judge, and apparently a reporter. You want to know what I deserve?" I deserve not to be physically attacked by my own family. My telephone rang. I looked at the screen and smiled. Oh, this is interesting. It's Amanda Walsh from Walsh and Associates. You know, the law firm that handles high-profile reputation management cases. She's offering her services pro bono. Sabrina's face became drained of blood. In New York society, reputation management was synonymous with controversy control. And if Amanda Walsh called, it meant the tale had already moved beyond my small circle. Vivian. Please, Sabrina said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I was just emotional. You're sorry? I chuckled, but it wasn't funny. You're sorry that there are consequences to your actions. You're sorry that you can't just take whatever you want from me without pushback. But you're not sorry for what you did. I am sorry, she insisted. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone it was a mistake. Too late for that. The damage is done. And it was. I could see it on the faces of the people surrounding us. The laughter had stopped completely, replaced by uneasy whispers and pointed stars. People who had previously considered my humiliation humorous now looked at Sabrina with disgust. The social media posts had already gone viral, and in New York's affluent circles, reputation meant everything. What do you want? Dad said calmly, defeat evident in his voice. I want you to leave me alone, I stated plainly. All of you. I want you to stop treating me like an ATM. Stop expecting me to sacrifice my happiness for Sabrina's convenience. And stop pretending that family means anything to you beyond what you can get from me. Vivian, we're still family, Mom murmured softly. No, we're not. Family doesn't demand you give up your home. Family doesn't scream at you in public. Family doesn't assault you at a wedding. Family supports each other, celebrates each other's successes, and treats each other with respect. You've never done any of those things for me. My phone vibrated again. This time it was an SMS from my assistant. Vivian TMZ is calling. They want to know if you are the lawyer who was assaulted at the Ritz-Carlton wedding. What do I tell them? I held the phone up so that everyone could read the message. TMZ is calling. This is about to become a very public story. Sabrina started crying, her flawless makeup spilling down her cheeks. Vivian, please. This is my wedding day. Don't ruin it. I'm not ruining anything, Sabrina. I'm just refusing to be your victim anymore. What can we do? Derek asked, desperate. How do we fix this? I looked at him, then at my parents, and last at my sister, who was sobbing in her wedding dress. You can't fix this, Derek. This is who they are. This is what they do. They take and take and take until there's nothing left. And when you finally say no, they attack you for it. The ballroom was beginning to empty now. Guests were making excuses and slipping away from what was obviously a family disaster. Sabrina's beautiful wedding was unraveling, and everyone wanted to isolate themselves from the chaos. The penthouse is mine, I said gently. I earned it. I paid for it. And I'm keeping it. If you want to live somewhere nice, Sabrina, get a job. Work for it like I did. I can't believe you're doing this, she muttered. I can't believe it took me this long. When I turned to leave, Dad grabbed my arm. Vivian, wait. We can work this out. Family counseling, mediation, whatever you want. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up to his face. Let go of me, Dad. He quickly released me, evidently aware of the consequences of physically restraining me in light of what had just occurred. There's nothing to work out, I informed them. You made your choice tonight. You chose Sabrina over me, just like you always have. You chose her convenience over my hard work. You chose her demands over my boundaries. And when I said no, you chose to watch her assault me rather than defend me. We didn't know she was going to hit you. Mom insisted, but you didn't stop her. You didn't apologize. You didn't even check if I was okay. You just stood there and let it happen. I began heading toward the exit, my heels clicking across the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear Sabrina's weeping, Mom's frantic murmurs, and Dad's angry mumbling. But I did not glance back. At the door, I turned around one more time. The once grand ballroom now resembled the site of a calamity. Wedding attendees were separated into tiny groups, whispering and pointing. The bride cried in her destroyed makeup. The groom appeared stunned, and my parents were attempting to contain the damage that was already spiraling out of hand. "You know what the funny thing is?" I exclaimed, my voice echoing around the virtually empty room. "I would have helped you if you'd asked nicely. If you'd come to me with respect, if you treated me like family instead of like a bank account, I would have helped you find a nice place to live. I might have even helped with the down payment." The hush that ensued was deafening. "But you didn't ask for help. You demanded my home. You screamed at me, insulted me, and then physically attacked me when I said no. So now you get nothing." I walked out of the Ritz-Carlton with my head held high, leaving behind the devastation of my sister's wedding and my family's reputation. The elevator tripped down seemed interminable. As the doors closed behind me, I could still hear the turmoil in the ballroom. Muffled voices crying and chairs scraping against marble as the remaining guests hurried to exit. My phone hadn't stopped vibrating since I wrote that message, and with each notification, I felt a combination of relief and dread. The lobby was thankfully quiet. The night manager, a distinguished gentleman in his 50s, approached me with concern on his face. "Ms. Morrison, is everything all right? We heard there was some commotion upstairs." I paused, thinking that even the hotel workers knew about the incident. "I'm fine, thank you. Just family drama." He nodded nicely, but I could see the interest in his eyes. By tomorrow, this story would have traveled across the hotel's staff gossip network and other luxury places across the city. In New York's aristocratic circles, scandals spread like wildfire. Outside, the crisp October air hit my face like a slap. Odd given that I had already been slapped once tonight. I remained on the sidewalk for a time, watching the traffic flow along Central Park South, and attempting to understand what had just occurred. Part of me couldn't believe I'd accomplished it. The other part of me questioned why it had taken this long. My telephone rang. Riley, my dearest friend, was a prosecutor I met during my first year at the company. "Vivian, what the hell is going on? I just saw your group message, and now there are photos all over Instagram. Did Sabrina really hit you?" "She did." I began walking towards the metro, needing to move and do something with the adrenaline still pouring through my veins. "Holy, are you okay? Do you want me to come over?" "I'm fine, Jess. Actually, I'm better than fine. I think I'm finally free. Free. Free from pretending they're actually my family. Free from feeling guilty about my success. Free from walking on eggshells every time I'm around them." There was a pause at the other end. "Vivian, you know this is going to get messy, right? Like really messy." "I know, but I'm tired of being the one who always has to clean up their messes. Let them figure it out for once." "What about your parents? They're going to be devastated." I paused walking. "Jess," they stood there and watched their daughter assault me in public. They demanded I give up my home for their golden child. They called me selfish for wanting to keep what I've worked for. When exactly am I supposed to start caring about their feelings? "You're right," she replied gently. "I'm sorry. I know how much family means to you. Family means everything to me, but they stopped being my family a long time ago. I was just too blind to see it." After hanging up with Riley, I chose to walk home rather than use the subway. I needed time to reflect, to comprehend what had just occurred and what was likely to happen next. The 40-block stroll from Midtown to my Upper West Side condo would allow me that time. As I went, my phone continued to vibrate with messages. Some were from coworkers who had attended the wedding and expressed their shock and support. Others were from pals who had seen the message circulate on social media. A handful were from journalists who had somehow obtained my phone number and wanted quotes on the incident. Patricia Winters, the senior partner at my old business, sent the most startling message. We had parted on good terms when I left to start my own practice, but we rarely spoke anymore. "Vivian, I only found out about this tonight. I want you to know you have my full support. What happened to you was terrible, and I applaud you for sticking up for yourself. Please call if you have any questions." Reading her message, I felt tears well up in my eyes for the first time all evening. Not tears of anguish or pain, but tears of thanks. Here was someone who hardly knew my family and had no duty to help me. Yet she offered it because it was the proper thing to do. It made me understand how mistaken my family had been about me. They depicted me as a selfish person who only cared about money and achievement. However, the messages flooding my phone painted a different narrative. They came from people who knew the real me, the person who mentored younger associates, did pro bono work for victims of domestic violence, and volunteered at legal aid clinics despite working 80-hour weeks. By the time I arrived at my building, I had over 200 messages and missed calls. My doorman, Luis, stared at me with alarm as I walked into the lobby. "Miss Vivian, you okay? You look like you've had a tough night." Luis had been working in my building for 15 years. He had seen me through law school stress, relationship breakups, employment changes, and many late nights. He knew me better than my family did. "I've had better nights, Louise, but I think things are going to get better from here." He smiled. "That's good to hear. You deserve all the happiness in the world." In the elevator, I finally allowed myself to look closely at my reflection in the mirrored walls. My cheek was still crimson from Sabrina's hit. My hair was somewhat unkempt and my makeup was smudged, but my eyes were bright and focused. I resembled someone who had been through battle and emerged victorious. As I entered my apartment, it seemed like a haven. The floor-to-ceiling windows provided a panoramic view of the city with lights glittering like stars. This was my space, my accomplishment, my home, and no one was going to take it away. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, finally allowing myself to sift through the incident-related social media posts. Someone had filmed Sabrina smacking me, perhaps thinking it was humorous at the time, and put it to Instagram. The video had already been posted hundreds of times, and comments ranged from indignation to support. "This is disgusting. Who hits someone at a wedding? That lawyer is my hero for refusing to back down. The sister is certainly entitled to AF. Whether in a family or not, assault is assault." I can't believe that everyone was laughing. What is wrong with people? However, it wasn't just random internet users commenting. I recognized names from New York's legal community, business heavyweights, and even a few celebrities who had reportedly watched the tape. The narrative was taking on a life of its own, reaching well beyond Sabrina's wedding. The phone rang again. This time it was my assistant Jenna who called from her personal phone. "Vivian, I'm so sorry to bother you on a Saturday night, but I've been getting calls all evening. The office voicemail is full and reporters keep calling my personal line asking for statements." "What kind of reporters?" "Everyone, local news. Page 6, TMZ, even CNN. This story is everywhere." I closed my eyes, suddenly fatigued. "What are they asking?" "They want to know if you're pressing charges, if you're planning to sue, what your family relationship was like before this. Some are asking about your law practice and your success story. A few want to know about your dating life." Of course they did. A successful single lady being attacked by her married sister was a common theme in stories about women, success, and family dynamics. "Jenna, I need you to draft a statement. Keep it simple and professional. Something like, Morrison is grateful for the outpouring of support she's received. She's focusing on her work and her clients at this time and won't be making any further public comments about this private family matter. Should I mention anything about pressing charges?" I paused. The fact was, I hadn't even considered filing charges. Sabrina's smack had been intended to humiliate rather than cause bodily hurt. However, the inquiry made me realize that I had possibilities I had not considered. Don't mention charges either way. Let's keep our options open. After hanging up with Jenna, I realized I was hungry. I hadn't eaten anything at the wedding because I was apprehensive about the impending family clash. I ordered Thai food and settled in to properly explore the consequences of tonight's occurrences. By late that evening, the tale had gained significant popularity on social media. The Instagram video of the slap has been published by many gossip accounts, resulting in thousands of views within hours. More intriguing were the lengthy articles already being published about the tragedy. A feminist blogger wrote on how women are expected to compromise their success for families. A family therapist wrote about poisonous family dynamics. A legal expert was discussing New York's assault statutes. My story had grown beyond just family drama. It sparked broader conversations about success, gender, family expectations, and standing up for oneself. Sabrina's Instagram account, which had been filled with wedding photographs and jubilation just hours before, was now inundated with angry comments. People called her entitled, abusive, and spoiled. Her wedding, #Sabrina and Derek Forever, was ironically used to broadcast a video of her punching me. I nearly felt bad for her almost. Then I remembered her triumphant expression as she smacked me, the way she sneered at finally receiving what she deserved, and my sympathy fled. My dinner arrived, and as I ate the pad thai, I began receiving calls from unexpected sources. My college roommate, whom I had not spoken with in years, contacted me to express her support. A cousin on my father's side, who had always been the family's black sheep, contacted me to discuss her own experiences with mistreatment by relatives. Even my high school guidance counselor, who had obviously seen the article on Facebook, called to express her pride in how far I had gone. But the most meaningful call came from Judge Margaret Chin, who had attended the wedding. "Vivian, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the court directory. I wanted to personally apologize for what I witnessed tonight." "Judge Chin, you don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I should have intervened. I should have said something when I saw what was happening. Instead, I just stood there like everyone else. You were a guest at a wedding, not a referee at a family fight. Perhaps, but I've been thinking about it all evening, and I keep coming back to something. That wasn't just family drama, Vivian. That was a pattern of abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, and then physical abuse. I've seen it too many times in my courtroom." Her comments struck me like a physical blow. I'd been so concentrated on the slap and the demands for my penthouse that I hadn't given much thought to the wider picture. But she was correct. This was more than simply one awful night. This was the culmination of years of my family treating me like a personal ATM, disregarding my accomplishments and making me feel bad about my success. I never thought of it that way. I said abuse isn't always obvious, especially when it's coming from the family. We're conditioned to accept behavior from relatives that we'd never tolerate from strangers. But what I saw tonight is the financial demands, the public humiliation, the physical violence. That's a textbook case of family abuse. After I hung up with Judge Chin, I sat in my apartment for a long time, reflecting on her words. Had I actually been abused by my family, it seemed like too strong a word. They had never hit me until tonight. They had never intimidated me or attempted to control my daily life. However, they had consistently attacked my accomplishments, made me feel guilty about my success, and asked me to sacrifice my happiness for Sabrina's convenience. They treated me like a bank account, not a daughter and sister. When I eventually said no, they publicly ridiculed and physically assaulted me. Maybe Judge Chin was correct. Perhaps this was abuse, but in a form I hadn't recognized. The understanding was simultaneously empowering and painful. It felt liberating, since it verified that I had made the correct decision to end my relationship. Heartbreaking, because it meant admitting that my family had never truly loved me. They just adored what I could offer them. As the night progressed, I found myself feeling glad for Sabrina's slap. It had been the wake-up call I needed, the final straw that gave me the strength to stop enabling their actions. Without it, I could have continued to be their doormat for years. By 2 a.m., I was exhausted yet surprisingly calm. I had disabled my phone alerts to stop the continual buzzing and was getting ready for bed when I heard the building's intercom. I looked at the camera monitor and saw Sabrina standing outside, still in her bridal dress, mascara smeared down her cheeks. She looked up at the camera and said, please." I wavered for a second. She looked shattered and desperate. Despite everything, the sister I'd grown up with was standing outside my building, screaming for help in her damaged wedding dress. Then I remembered her triumphant expression after she had hit me. I remembered her saying that she deserved everything I had worked for. I remembered 200 people laughing as I stood there ashamed and alone. I switched off the monitor and went to bed. The story appeared on page 6 the next morning. Lawyer assaulted my sister at Rit's wedding. Read the headline, which was accompanied by a photograph of Sabrina smacking me. The story described the entire affair, from my family's demands for my penthouse to the assault in front of 200 people. By lunchtime, it was trending on social media. The hashtags Wash Wedding Assault and Dar Family Grieve went viral, with thousands of people sharing their own tales of entitled family members and supporting my decision to fight back. That afternoon, Sabrina's new mother-in-law called to cancel her invitation to the family Christmas celebration. Derek's legal business conducted an internal investigation after many clients voiced worry about his involvement in the incident. Mom and Dad's Country club membership has been quietly stopped awaiting review. The vengeance I chose was neither violent nor criminal. It was just the truth enhanced by the power of social media and the relationships I had spent years cultivating. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is simply showing others who someone truly is. Sabrina called me a week later, crying and pleading with me to help them control the damage. She was sacked from her work at a boutique public relations agency when clients began canceling their contracts. Derek was about to undergo a professional ethics assessment. Their honeymoon was cut short when photographers began following them. "Vivian, please," she sobbed into her phone. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. You meant to humiliate me." I answered gently. "You meant to force me to give up my home. You meant to put me in my place in front of 200 people. The only thing you didn't mean was to face consequences for it. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone I was wrong. Sabrina, stop." I was sitting in my penthouse admiring the view of Central Park that I had fought so hard for. You can't apologize your way out of this. You can't take back what you did. And you can't force me to forgive you just because you're finally facing consequences. "But we're family," she muttered. "Family doesn't assault each other, Sabrina. Family doesn't demand sacrifices they're not willing to make themselves. Family doesn't laugh when one of their own is humiliated. I know I messed up, but please help me fix this. I can't fix this for you. This is something you have to live with." She hung up crying, and I never heard from her again. 6 months later, Sabrina and Derek got divorced. The stress of the incident, along with the financial strain of both losing their jobs, had ended their marriage before it had begun. Sabrina returned to live with our parents, who were experiencing their own social exile. Dad's business struggled as customers distanced themselves from the family, which had become associated with entitlement and selfishness. Meanwhile, my practice flourished. The attention, while initially unsettling, eventually worked in my favor. I became known as the lawyer who refused to be intimidated and stuck up for herself, even if it meant standing alone. New clients contacted me, particularly because they had heard about my refusal to back down. I never got my family back, but then I realized I hadn't truly had them to begin with. I had a group of people who regarded me as a resource to be used rather than a person to be appreciated. Naturally, I retained ownership of the penthouse. I eventually turned one of the extra bedrooms into a home office and the other into a guest room for my closest friends. The space Sabrina had stated I didn't need was filled by the relationships I formed with people who respected me for who I was rather than what I could provide them. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled things differently, if there was a way to keep my boundaries while not hurting my family. But then I remember the sound of that slap booming throughout the ballroom, the laughing of 200 people, and Sabrina's triumphant expression when she thought she had won. I chose the revenge that would permanently silence them, and it worked. They never asked me for anything else. Even though it was unexpected, the silence was just what I had hoped for. In the end, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at someone. Sometimes it is simply refusing to let them get away with it. Sometimes it is standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to treat me like this anymore." And sometimes that's enough to shift everything.